And now that I think about it, diindolylmethane is like a double slap when it comes to anti-anabolism. It slaps the androgen receptor and prevents it from translocating into the nucleus. And it slaps the mTOR by inhibiting all the other functions which are associated with anabolism. So diindolylmethane is probably the worst compound on this list. Vigorous Steve here. Since you guys like that flushing protocol so much, I'm going to dedicate an entire video series to avoiding particular drug combinations. Because some of the compounds that we tend to use in bodybuilding or fitness, they all have their unique yet overlapping and compounding side effects. And that's why I made that flushing video, so you guys have a fundamental understanding of which compounds you should avoid. Because they all induce a decent amount of flushing by themselves. But when combined, especially when all of them would be combined, that's a total body flush representing the Red Hulk, or just a facial flush representing the Red Skull. So again, I wanted to post it in case you want to combine those compounds for a full body flush. But honestly, yeah, avoid any of these compounds in combination because the overlapping flushing effect would be intolerable, to say the least. So we'll continue with these drug combinations that you should avoid. So in this video, we'll discuss the ultimate anti-anabolic supplementation and ancillary stack. And then in the future, I'll do a ultimate nosebleed protocol or a crippled by lower back pumps Michelin Man stack or the ultimate guide to hair loss. No clippers required, which might actually have some practical applications during this time. Because all the barbers seem to be closed and many of us, including myself, have to DIY our own haircuts. And that protocol would probably induce hair loss to the point you never have to visit another barber ever again. Again, all drug combinations that you should avoid to give you fundamental understanding of which particular compounds result in particular side effects that again will all compound when combined. So in this video, we'll discuss the anti-anabolic supplementation stack, starting with calcium D-Glucarate and TUDCA, also known as tauroursodeoxycholic acid, and its close variant, which isn't conjugated with taurine, ursodeoxycholic acid. That's the TUDCA and the UDCA. Now, I mentioned both calcium D-Glucarate and TUDCA or UDCA in the liver health video, which I posted a couple days ago. You can watch that right here. But there's also something to say that calcium D-Glucarate or TUDCA and UDCA both help with the excretion of anabolic androgenic steroids, or their active metabolites, or selective androgen receptor modulators, or some of the other compounds which are considerably anabolic. And I already made a video about anabolic pathways in the past. Watch that here if you're not familiar with everything we can take that has a contribution to overall anabolism. Should be more than sufficient to offset whatever we'll discuss in this video. Calcium D-Glucarate provides building blocks for the glucuronidation process, where oral steroids or SARMs or anything else that's injected is inactivated through glucuronidation, where glucuronidase is attached to the parent hormone, whether that's the active pharmaceutical ingredient, the anabolic steroid, or the SARM, or the clenbuterol, etc., or one of its active metabolites, and even the non-active metabolites, which have no contributing overall anabolic effect. At one point, they all get glucuronidated, whether that's in the liver on the first pass, or within skeletal muscle, or on the second pass, or with injectables, it goes into the liver at one point in time and it gets glucuronidated there, or methylated, or converted into a metabolite. Calcium D-Glucarate helps with detoxification of the active pharmaceutical ingredient or the active metabolites. So whenever a compound is glucuronidated, it's marked for excretion through the liver or the kidneys, and it's no longer active to potentiate anabolism. So by taking calcium D-Glucarate and preventing the recirculation of glucuronidase and perhaps reabsorb some of the active pharmaceutical ingredients or the active metabolites, contributing to additional anabolism, you optimize the process of detoxification, which might result in an overall lowered anabolic effect for the amounts of milligrams of AES or SARMs or whatever that you're taking. And the same can be said for TUDCA, which promotes bile acid excretion through the intestinal tract and into the stool, especially if you combine that with a decent amount of fiber to help bind up the bile acids. Whenever you take something orally, some of that active pharmaceutical ingredient is methylated, some of that is converted into an active metabolite or non-active metabolite or glucuronidated. And the TUDCA or the UDCA supplementation protocols that I mentioned in the liver health video, they help with excretion. So now you're lowering this overall anabolic effect from the compounds that you're taking even further. Now, I never noticed anything significant from 2,000 milligrams of TUDCA and 2,000 milligrams of calcium D-Glucarate combined, whether I was drug-free or enhanced. And of course, you would have to feel a noticeable effect when you're drug-free because you only have so much endogenous testosterone production that your testicles can contribute to. You get a little bit of a testosterone from neurosteroid conversion, which are produced in the adrenal glands, from the DHEA into the testosterone, and a decent portion of that is converted into estradiol, which is also. So, with endogenous testosterone production, adding in 2,000 milligrams of calcium D-Glucarate and TUDCA, 2,000 milligrams of TUDCA on top, I didn't notice a difference. But on paper, and with plenty of evidence to back that up, it is linked with the excretion of active pharmaceutical ingredient or active metabolites. So keep that in mind. Calcium D-Glucarate and TUDCA can lower the overall anabolic effects of the compounds that you're taking. How much that contributes, I would say it's so negligible that you wouldn't notice a difference. And these two over-the-counter supplements, which are also part of the anti-anabolic supplementation protocol, both have their unique characteristics when it comes to liver health and help to regulate the overall estrogen balance in the body, whether you're enhanced or not. They have also been linked to inhibiting particular functions of the androgen receptor, might actually be an anti-androgen, and are considered to be anti-anabolic. But it's only been studied in cases of prostate and skin cancer. Silymarin, milk Thistle, has been shown to inhibit functions of the androgen receptor when it's bound to DNA in part of the gene transcription process. And Diindolylmethane, which is generally used to help with estrogen balance in the body, it can actually inhibit the androgen receptor from translocating into the nucleus. So when a particular androgen binds to the membrane androgen receptor, it translates to the nucleus and starts transcribing DNA, becoming a nuclear androgen receptor. So diindolylmethane in cases of prostate and skin cancer has been shown to inhibit translocation. And it's also been shown to downregulate the process in which androgen receptors are being formed on the cell membrane. So not only does it inhibit the delivery to the nucleus, it also prevents the additional production of androgen receptors, membrane androgen receptors. Whether that's the case for nuclear androgen receptors, I couldn't figure out. But both of these compounds, Silymarin and diindolylmethane, they can actually inhibit prostate cancer cell proliferation. Now, Silymarin doesn't cause cell apoptosis of the prostate cancer, but diindolylmethane apparently is potent enough to cause cell death and cell apoptosis of prostate or skin cancer cells when sufficiently dosed. Now, a lot of people in the fitness industry would interpret that as anti-anabolic, right? The function of the androgen receptor is inhibited, and you get less androgen receptors on the cell membrane, and whatever is on the cell membrane isn't even allowed to transfer to the nucleus. And the small portion that's translocated into the nucleus, even the gene transcription process is inhibited by Silymarin. So it sounds very anti-anabolic overall. But again, it's only been studied in cases of prostate and skin cancer. And considering there's so many different polymorphisms when it comes to the androgen receptor by itself, and again, everybody responds a little bit differently, and look at it logically, the entire industry has researched for decades to come up with solutions like selective androgen receptor modulators. Because the pharmaceutical industry understands that androgen receptors on particular tissues don't all respond the same way. And that's why selective androgen receptor modulators were designed to be more tissue selective for skeletal muscle and not be very tissue selective for the androgen receptor in the scalp or the prostate or other tissues of the body. How far that plays out, so far I'm not really convinced. But when you look at it logically, if there's prostate cancer in your family, why not run Silymarin? Why not run Diindolylmethane? 200 or 300 to 600 to 900 milligrams of Silymarin for overall liver health and contribute to the inhibition of the progression of prostate cancer and, inhibit cell proliferation. So if there's a minute amount of prostate cancer present, Silymarin, while contributing to liver health, can also prevent this prostate cancer from progressing any further, way before it's diagnosed. So it would actually be wise to take Silymarin year-round to inhibit prostate cancer from even getting a grasp on your prostate, right? And when you look at Diindolylmethane, which also inhibits cell proliferation and can actually cause cell death or apoptosis of skin cancer or prostate cancer cells, why not run that year-round? If you're worried about cancer, Silymarin and Diindolylmethane, both together, would actually be a potent preventative measure against prostate or skin cancer. Right? It makes sense to run that year-round if prostate cancer or skin cancer are in your family. Now, in practical applications, are they anti-anabolic? I haven't seen that in any way, shape, or form at any period during my 10-year coaching career. It was not anti-anabolic for my wife when she ran Diindolylmethane for 14 weeks, 16 weeks, sometimes even 20 weeks leading into a contest prep. She would always look phenomenal, and there's no loss of strength, density, hardness, or overall fat loss would be inhibited just by running 200 milligrams of Diindolylmethane by itself. And I've still been running 600 milligrams of Silymarin per day to help with this liver health that I was faced with in the past, when now the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is resolved. So I'm going to discontinue the Silymarin as soon as I finish the bottle. I won't be ordering any more. But I'm still running it, still getting stronger, still feeling more anabolic. I don't feel that the Silymarin or the Diindolylmethane, whenever I was running it in the past, was slowing me down regarding my bodybuilding aspiration in any way, shape, or form. But again, on paper, regarding prostate cancer, it has been shown to inhibit cell proliferation and inhibit the androgen receptor from functioning correctly, which is highly desired in cases of prostate cancer. And I honestly don't see it play out within skeletal muscle that way. Keep that in mind. 300, 600, 900 milligrams of Silymarin per day, 200 milligrams of Diindolylmethane per day, highly beneficial for liver health, estrogen balance, and perhaps prevent the progression of prostate cancer, and no anti-anabolic effects, in my opinion, in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. And when you combine Silymarin to Diindolylmethane to a true anti-androgen, like spironolactone or Aldactone, for example, within 1 week of Aldactone treatment, which is actually quite common in pre-contest or pre-photo shoot protocols, where people run 25, 50, even 100 milligrams of Aldactone per day to help with a little bit of water loss, because Aldactone prevents the reabsorption of sodium. So now it's easier to excrete sodium, and water usually follows sodium through the kidneys when sodium excretion is promoted with Aldactone. And within 3 days, you're still good. You're still hard, dense, nasty, hard, full. But after a week of Aldactone treatment, you start to fade a little bit, get a little bit soft, don't get a really good pump, don't get a really good contraction anymore. So what I learned the hard way on myself and some of my clients is that after a week of Aldactone, you just look flat. You look soft, and you don't look like you want to look on stage or during a photo shoot. So I figured out that Aldactone treatment, use of Aldactone to make you look as shredded as possible, there's a limited time period in which you can do that. It's maybe 2 days, 3 days. So you start your carb up, you add in a low dose Aldactone, 25 milligrams, once or twice per day, and that's more than enough to reduce sodium reabsorption and make you look shredded without getting this anti-anabolic or anti-androgenic effect on skeletal muscle. But if you run it for a week, which many people do, you really end up not looking good, and your overall anabolism and the anti-androgenic effect that spironolactone, Aldactone has will be quite noticeable. And I never noticed that with Silymarin or Diindolylmethane. Also, something to say for Ketoconazole, the shampoo or the oral that a lot of people take, also acts as an anti-androgen, even though it's an antifungal medication that has now been adopted to prevent hair loss. A lot of people prefer to take that topically to block the androgen receptors in the scalp, which has been shown to be highly beneficial to prevent the progression of hair loss. But when taken orally, there's some anti-androgenic effects systemically. So that's why most people would prefer to take the Ketoconazole shampoo topically once, twice per day on the scalp instead. And again, it's way more pronounced than Silymarin or Diindolylmethane. And there's a lot of other compounds which are considerably more anti-androgenic or anti-anabolic. Now, while we're on the subject of cell growth and cell proliferation, Diindolylmethane, Curcumin, Berberine, caffeine, and even Resveratrol, coming from red wine or berries, they all inhibit the mammalian target of rapamycin, mTOR, which links with other proteins and helps to control cellular processes in the body, especially in response to strenuous workouts, whether that's strenuous strength workouts or hypertrophy workouts or endurance workouts. mTOR links with other proteins and induces cell growth, cell proliferation, protein synthesis, and even gene transcription. And now that I think about it, Diindolylmethane is like a double bitch slap when it comes to anti-anabolism. It bitch slaps the androgen receptor and prevents it from translocating into the nucleus, and it bitch slaps the mTOR by inhibiting all the other functions which are associated with anabolism. So Diindolylmethane is probably the worst compound on this list. And yet, it never played out in real life. I've never seen anybody recover less by taking Diindolylmethane or get less androgen receptor-mediated gene transcription. Again, it is what it is. And on paper, all the studies point in the wrong direction. But practical application and the experience that I have with my clients, myself and my wife, it tells me not to worry about the studies so much. Anyway, inhibiting mTOR will always lead to an anti-anabolic effect. Sometimes that's desired. That's why a lot of people take Metformin, for example, which, in my opinion, actually reduces strength. I noticed that myself, with my clients, and everybody else that I've talked to that has dosed Metformin on a daily basis, whether that's 500 milligrams, 1,000 milligrams, or even 2,000 milligrams. It's way overdoing it. Metformin also inhibits mTOR. And on the other side, Metformin activates AMPK, which stands for 5-adenosine monophosphate activated protein kinase. AMPK helps to regulate energy expenditure and homeostasis within the cell and promotes the uptake of glucose and fatty acids. And in that sense, it contributes to insulin sensitivity. So again, Metformin has its place for anti-aging and for insulin sensitivity. But comparing Metformin to a combination of Diindolylmethane, Berberine, caffeine, and Curcumin all at the same time, in my opinion, and from my experience, Metformin reduces strength, makes workouts less productive, gives you a flatter appearance by delaying the rate at which glucose enters the bloodstream, another effect of Metformin in which it regulates insulin sensitivity or improves insulin sensitivity. So 500 milligrams Metformin on a daily basis, I would say that's highly anti-anabolic, yet a lot of people run that because then they feel they can get away with a little bit more sloppy diet. 500 milligrams Metformin per day versus 200 milligrams of Diindolylmethane, 1,000 milligrams of Curcumin, 1,000 milligrams of Berberine. Let's say 900 milligrams caffeine. I do like my caffeine. I know I take too much caffeine, but I highly like my caffeine. And I have berries every day. How much resveratrol is contained within? I have no idea, but I'm sure the blueberries and strawberries and the raspberries that I have on a daily basis in my yogurt bowl before bed to give me a little bit of satisfaction, a little bit enjoyable meal every day. I'm sure that all downregulates the overall anabolic experience that I'm going to have from my endogenous testosterone production. Here, see, I'm doing all of this at the same time. Well, besides the Diindolylmethane, right? I'm taking 1,000 milligrams of curcumin, and I'm taking 1,000 milligrams of berberine, and I'm taking 900 milligrams of caffeine, and however much resveratrol I get. from the berries. I don't drink red wine. Maybe on my wife's birthday. It's coming up soon. 1 or 2 glasses, right? Don't worry. We'll get to alcohol a little bit later in this video as well. I don't notice any loss of strength, any loss of performance. I don't lose any muscularity. I'm still full, round, dense for as good as it can be on 630 nanograms per deciliter. And being on a ketogenic diet, restricting carbohydrates. If I were to add in the metformin right now, I would get flat and I would lose strength in the gym, hands down. I can guarantee it. And yet, a lot of people prefer to run that over Berberine, Curcumin, Resveratrol, caffeine, and Diindolylmethane all at the same time, and then pointing at the Diindolylmethane. No, you are the culprit, and you're my excuse why I can't gain any muscle. And of course, alcohol is highly counterproductive for your overall bodybuilding or fitness aspirations, because alcohol impairs muscle protein synthesis. And it also impairs exercise performance the next day. It depends a little bit on the amount of alcohol that you consumed. But let's say you go out on a Saturday and you also do leg day on Saturday. And you have 1, 2, 3, 20 glasses of alcohol in the evening. Now you're inhibiting the recovery of your leg day. And your legs will never be as good as they can be by skipping social events and drinking your socks off on a Saturday night, even once a week. Again, I always recommend everybody to drink their alcohol on birthdays and maybe New Year's or Christmas or family events. And you limit that to 4 times per year. That should be enough. My birthday, my wife's birthday, a family event, and New Year's. More than enough. More than enough. And I can notice it. Well, I do drink. When I drink, it's more than 1 glass. So maybe that's my fault, my bad. Even 1 glass of alcohol, I notice that my exercise performance goes down the next day. Probably even more than metformin. Or I also notice that my exercise performance goes down the next day. 500 milligrams metformin after a cheat meal. Don't combine metformin with alcohol. Actually, I think that metformin has a drug interaction with alcohol where it inhibits some of the breakdown of alcohol. So you could get a hangover. I experienced that one time, and then I looked into the drug I can't remember what it was exactly, but I do remember that there's a particular drug interaction with metformin and alcohol, inhibiting the breakdown of alcohol and, making you susceptible to a hangover. So if you care about your exercise performance, avoid metformin and alcohol at all costs. Now, what I also mentioned in the liver health video is that vitamin C, vitamin E, and glutathione all act as an antioxidant and prevent free radicals or reactive oxygen species from damaging cellular components. And while that's highly desired for overall liver health, it might actually inhibit the accrual of new muscle tissue, which has actually been studied. In a 10-week study, they showed that the acute response to strenuous workouts in the vitamin C and E group was less in overall strength progression compared to the placebo group. But both the placebo and the vitamin E and C group had comparable amounts of when it comes to the growth of new muscle tissue. So even though vitamin C and E are antioxidants and might inhibit the acute response post-exercise when it comes to protein signaling and protein synthesis by inhibiting mTOR to a certain extent, reducing the overall progression in strength, it hasn't been shown that it reduces the overall growth of muscle tissue. So you might be a little bit less strong while you're supplementing vitamin C and E, but it shouldn't prevent you from gaining additional muscle tissue. Vitamin C has also been shown to prevent sarcopenia in the elderly. So, there's one study to say that it's anti-anabolic to a certain extent, and another study to say that it's anti-catabolic to a certain extent. So, circumstantial evidence. You can take me for an example. I've had periods where I supplemented with 6 grams of vitamin C per day. Actually, I'm taking 5 grams of vitamin C per day right now. And I took 800 IU's vitamin E and 1,000 milligrams of glutathione so that my antioxidants were through the roof, to the moon, including the berries that I was taking. So resveratrol also to the moon. So that's 6,000 milligrams vitamin C, 1,000 milligrams of glutathione, 800 IU's vitamin E, an ultimate antioxidant stack for liver health, no loss of strength. And I really dived into the research when it comes to vitamin C and E. I told some of my drug-free clients that are really pushing against their natural potential. It's almost impossible for them to progress. They're gaining like a pound or 2 pounds per year. And I told them, so listen, there's some evidence that it blunts the acute protein signaling response post-workout. Take all the vitamin C, take all the vitamin E, take all the glutathione or the NAC, the N-acetylcysteine, which used to be available but no longer is, unless you really do your digging. Take all that stuff out, reduce your overall antioxidant intake for 4 weeks. Let's see if you get stronger. Nothing happened. Nothing changed. Right? They didn't get any stronger. They didn't get any more muscular. Maybe their liver health took a little bit of a beating in the process. Again, these antioxidants have their place for the overall health of your physique. But considering they didn't get stronger, I didn't get any weaker. Whenever I would take the vitamin C out because I ran out or delivery was slow, I didn't notice that my strength went up in any way, shape, or form. So maybe me and my clients are poor at tracking our lifts, even though we all follow progressive overload. These studies don't really play out. So again, to summarize all the stuff that I was taking that is said to be anti-anabolic, but in my experience has no overall effect, running 200 milligrams of diindolylmethane, 6 grams of vitamin C, 800 IUs of vitamin E, 1,000 milligrams of glutathione, what else? 900 milligrams of caffeine, 1,000 milligrams of berberine, 1,000 milligrams of curcumin, phytosomes, and 600 milligrams of Silymarin. I'm sure I left something out, so I'll put it on the screen right there. This entire stack, you can use it as an excuse to explain why you don't look like a bodybuilder. But take it from me, as a bodybuilder, even though I'm not anywhere close to my previous all-time biggest, if I were to run this stack on 100 milligrams a test, it would not inhibit anabolism in any way, shape, or form. Right? I would not be any less big. I would not be any smaller. I would not be any weaker or less strong in the gym. I would not look any different cosmetically. Maybe the berberine and the curcumin would make me look a little bit more flat. Again, I'm following a ketogenic diet. And even if I were to take all of these drug-free, I'm taking all of these without any anabolic androgenic steroids, even though I run a little bit of growth hormone on the side. If that's unacceptable for you, the dislike button is right there. So even 2 units of growth hormone on this entire stack, I highly doubt I would look any less muscular. I would be any less strong. And the overall compounding benefits regarding health, I would trade that off in a heartbeat for 1%, 0.1% less muscle, 0.1% less strength. It will be a very, very easy trade-off. But feel free to use this stack as an excuse why you don't look like a bodybuilder. The ultimate anti-anabolic stack. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're looking for the most comprehensive guides to bodybuilding pharmacology, you can find the ebooks on my website, vigoroussteve.com/shop. If you're looking for personalized advice, I'm always available for consultations. You can find the rates in the consultations section. Follow me on Instagram at vigoroussteve. Front double bicep, doing everything wrong in this anti-anabolic supplementation protocol. The Silymarin, the berberine, the curcumin, the berries, and its resveratrol. Doing everything wrong. Front double bicep. For you guys, Vigorous crew, you guys know what to do. Much appreciated. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Let me know down below in the comment section which one you want to see next. The ultimate nosebleed protocol or the crippling lower back pumps Michelin Man protocol or the ultimate hair loss stack. I'm sure we can come up with a lot of drug combinations you should avoid. But actually these particular supplement combinations, from my experience, you can take them all at the same time and you would still look like a beast. Really. I've done this many times before. See you guys in the next video.